Welcome, everybody. I'm Daniel G. Garza, and this is another episode of Put It Together Conversations. Welcome to the show. I want to start by welcoming all of our channels. I'm so excited that we're able to broadcast to more channels than we used to. So if you're watching us on Facebook, on any of the pages, either my personal page, Put It Together Conversations, the Daniel G. Garza fan page, or Little Mexico Productions, welcome to the show. You are welcome to join the conversation. Make sure you are in the brown background of the chat space so I can see your comments and questions. If you're watching us on LinkedIn, welcome. You are the newest channel to all of Little Mexican Productions. So we will be broadcasting on LinkedIn from now on. So also, if you are want to join in the conversation, all you do is just comment in the video and we will see your comments here live. And for our viewers on YouTube and Twitter, remember, we're watching you. Twitter is a little trickier, so if you comment on it, I will have it open on my screen, and I'll be able to see all of your comments and make sure that my guests get them, and I will say them for you. I guess that's what I was going to say. Yes, hush, it's my show. I want to start the bio. I'm going to be honest. I was going to bring it up, but I'm feeling a little loopy today, and mainly because I got my first shot yesterday, and they told me, chill, but I don't listen. So here we are doing a live show. So there you go. Haha. So my guest today is, let me put up his name so you guys can know what I'm talking about. There you go. And we're going to call him Pastor Rod for here for the show today. Pastor Rod serves as a pastor at the Neighborhood Congregational UCC in Laguna Beach, California. It's my neighbor. In addition to his professional and experiential passions, including pastoral care, leadership development, fundraising, and counseling, he deeply enjoys the gift of connection through community. He's originally from Memphis, Tennessee, with unfailing taste for jazz, soul, and gospel music. Having spent his undergraduate in Brown and graduate in Boston University in New England, his tolerance for frigid climate is reasonably tempered by his preference for a clear, warm day. He's into comic books, college basketball, and football, go Broncos, and non-chocolate candies. We're going to have to talk about that. We're going to have to discuss that one. His ongoing academic interests are in the development of a theory of leadership for equitable communities. And we are so happy to have him on the show, and we're going to bring him on. Hello. How you doing?
Daniel, it's a pleasure to be here. Greetings to you and all your viewers. I want to congratulate you on your podcast and all of its great positive work. And it sounds like you're expanding your channels and your outreach. So I extend my congratulations to you, my friend.
Thank you, sir. You know, what started off as a little podcast on a couple of channels 9 years ago, over the years just kind of developed. And here we are doing live streams and connecting with people. I guess you and I have that in common. It's about connecting, bringing information to people. And I've always felt that what I receive is a gift from God and the universe, and it's not meant for me to keep. It's meant to receive and share. And I'm blessed and grateful that I have this platform to do it.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and hopefully we can learn something today, not just from me, but from each other, and perhaps your viewers can take something from it. I'm just so happy to be here. It's a beautiful day here in Southern California, and let's see what the Spirit can teach us and share with us today.
You know, I went out this morning and had to run some errands. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Aha, see what I did there?
I love that. Well done. Yes.
The Neighborhood Congregational Church. See what I did there? So one of the things I like to share with my audience is how we met. And I first met you at one of the World AIDS Day events, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And you were new to Orange County when I met you. I'm going to confess because the last time I saw you, which was just this last December at the NEC, I told you I was mad at you because I had been emailing you. So for everybody out there, I was so mad. I was like, if I ever see him again, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind, which is not a whole lot, but but you weren't okay. So I was emailing you, but you weren't getting my emails.
Right. That's right.
So forgiven. I will
No,
forgive.
no, it's okay. Listen, we've learned a lot. Listen, with COVID, we have gone to a whole new level technologically, computers and tech and video and social media. We've gone to whole new levels. And now I'm getting my emails appropriately. And I was so happy to hear from you and to know that you're still interested in a conversation. And we could talk more about the COVID reactions later and how we learned. But on the whole, I'm grateful. Clearly, no one wants to have 500,000 lives lost under any circumstance. But if anything, I can look at this COVID pandemic from a larger level and say that on the whole, we've learned a lot, haven't we, Daniel? We've
Yeah.
learned a lot through this.
Definitely 2020. And I say this humbly and grateful for everything that 2020 wasn't.
Yeah.
For a lot. For me, because I work in social media and I work from home a lot, it allowed me time to sit down on the spiritual side. It allowed me to sit down and really reflect on myself, body, mind, and soul. Like, where am I and where do I want to go and what do I want to do? And God was kind of like, dude, are you finally going to sit down? Like, what's going on here? And then on the professional side, it was about getting creative. It's like, how do I want to share what I do and how I do it? So yeah, for everybody out there, we know some of you succeeded and some of you had hard times, but we're here for you and anything we
Absolutely.
we can do.
Absolutely.
Well, I don't want to keep the people waiting. I want to hear your story. So Pastor Rod, tell us how you put it together.
I appreciate this and thank you. I hope we can make this more of a dialogue than just me preaching. I think my church hears enough from me on a one-sided approach pretty much too often. So hopefully we can make this a two-way. I'll start with the simple notion that one of my biggest takeaways from this COVID pandemic has been a real appreciation for the joy of letting go. Now, I want to be clear, we're in the season of Lent right now, and I know usually in the traditional Christian world, when we use words like Lent, the kind of imagery that comes up is the idea that you give up something. You give up candy, you give up, movies or some satisfaction or pleasure or something in your life that has maybe taken up too much of your time or perhaps been unhealthy or destructive. You give it up, and that's a beautiful thing. I'm not here to say that that's necessarily something to be upset about or to criticize. But what I'm grateful for because of COVID is that my community and other communities have really gone deeper. It's not just giving up something, it's also letting go of something. When we have been forced in our homes and forced to do life differently, to repattern our schedules and reimagine our days, one of the beautiful qualities over this past year is its newness and the invitation to let go of obsessions, to let go of activities and behaviors and deceptions in our lives that truly keep us from being our best selves. And so that's really my biggest personal lesson, which also happens to be my biggest professional lesson. I'm really learning through this pandemic and all the changes that we've seen to take myself less seriously, to be less clingy, to not to have the need to be in control, to really live into this lifelong practice that we call letting go. So that's really my overarching vision for myself in 2021, and I really believe that it drives so much of where I am today, where I'm going. And frankly, Daniel, I can look back on my life now and I can see some very clear instances in which, had I let go, had I allowed myself to be a better version of myself, I probably would have had a very different circumstance, emotionally, physically, financially, spiritually, you name it. So this power of letting go, it's absolutely something for a whole life and not just 1 or 2 days. So I can couch everything we talk about today in this idea of letting go, and I look forward to that.
That's interesting. I wrote down the letting go part, and I want to get more into that. But before we get too deep into the story, I want folks to know, what brought you to you? Like, what brought you to Laguna? What brought you to be Pastor Rod? What was that put it together story like?
I look forward to that. Yeah, this is great. So basically, I'm a product of the American South. I grew up in Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, the home of the blues and the best barbecue in the world and all the rest. And I know you have a Texas background, so we can talk about barbecue anytime you want, Daniel. I look forward to that opportunity.
And I've been to Memphis, so I'm you know what, I'm not a big biscuit and jelly or jam man. But when I went to Memphis, I was changed around. So okay, that's all I'm gonna say about that. But yes,
yeah. We can talk recipes for sure, because I'm sure we can compare and we can teach each other. I'm sure some different styles. I look forward to that. But yeah, Memphis, Tennessee, great culture, fantastic family network, very strong church community where it wasn't only about the Bible stories. It was truly about being together and caring for each other and being there for each other, representing and supporting each other, whether it was financially, emotionally, spiritually. I remember my church days more for the relationships, perhaps more than even the learnings. The learnings were helpful, but what I cherish most is the fact that I had a whole family of folk, a whole village around me that really taught me great values of respect and values of appreciation for education and values for the betterment of everyone else, caring for the wider world. I mean, these are values that I picked up even in that strong Baptist, in some ways conservative background that I still carry forward today. Even though I've changed my religious understandings over time, I still bring the basics of my Southern background and upbringing with me. And then from there, I went to the North. I went to fabulous schools, Brown University, Boston University, and that was where I, over time, because we don't have a whole lot of time, I have to give you the short version, but I basically went into my wilderness experience. For those who know what I mean when I say that, almost every religious tradition has some kind of understanding about a wilderness experience where you go into this phase in your life where you're not what you used to be and you're not what you're going to be. You're in this in-between phase where angels come your way. In my case, angels like professors and really good friends, colleagues who work with me in different nonprofits and volunteer capacities, who all in their own way help me to look at my religious faith in a much more broader, I believe, inclusive, progressive, much more open-minded way than I had when I grew up. And so I like to always tell people that I, growing up in the South, I was introduced to Jesus. But I like to believe that I found Jesus for myself personally when I went to the North and had my own individual experiences with all of those various angels. And so, long story short, after I finished my educational experience and made that leap through the wilderness experience that I described before, that was when I was able to make a decision about how I saw myself working in the world. And right around 2008, 2009, after getting my graduate degree, that was about the point in my life, Daniel, where I had a choice to make. I could stay in that sort of fundraising space that I had been in for already 6 years as a nonprofit fundraiser, being successful in that regard, or I could begin to explore other faith communities that were more aligned with my progressive values. And so I made a conscious decision about 2008, 2009, to start exploring and looking for that kind of community. And I'm grateful that at the time that I was able to make that decision, I was starting to hear about a particular Christian denomination called the United Church of Christ, also known as the UCC. And so, again, long story short, I left New England, came to California. I've been here for about 11 years now. And over the course of from 2010 up until about 2016, I made my leap. I made my leap of faith from my background in Baptist church, being an ordained Baptist minister, and transitioning over to the United Church of Christ, which is a denomination that is much more aligned with who I am now and what I'm trying to be as a Christian in the world. And that was when, about 2016, I found an opportunity to come to Laguna Beach and serve a UCC church called Neighborhood Church. I've been there since, and I love it. I'm grateful to be a part of the village that is Laguna. I love the values. I love the interconnectedness of our town and our communities. I love being a part of Laguna because I see so much of its richness and its color reflecting my own life, my own journey, the color that brought me to who I am now, the diversity of experiences that I've had to get to where I am now. I cherish all of that, all of my life, because all of it is gift, as you said. And Laguna, whenever I think about our town, I have that feeling that I'm a part of that melting pot, just like everybody else. And we all found our way to this incredible place in our own way. And we did it with determination in many cases, and courage in many cases, and a lot of hope and a lot of luck. And all of that makes me smile.
Awesome. Before I ask my first question or my next question, everybody watching, thank you for watching. This is Put Together Conversations. We're talking to Pastor Rod about finding your way in life. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, please ask your questions in the comment, whatever channel you're watching on. If you're on Twitter, you can retweet this and ask a question, and I will see it, and I'll make sure he gets it. Do you feel that you had, and I don't, because I was raised Catholic, and I still believe in what the church taught me. Of course, I've kind of like, I guess, similar like you, it's kind of grown in a new direction, but God is still very present in my life, such as spirituality. But do you feel like you had to let go of some beliefs, or did you just add to what you already believed in?
That is a really good question. Thank you. So I like to talk about faith and belief in different but sometimes similar ways. So sometimes faith and belief become synonymous in people's conversations. When they talk about belief, they automatically equate that with faith. I like to think about them in this way. Belief is a kind of shall I say, a tent pole or a guidepost. It's a way of thinking about something that you receive into yourself that makes sense for your life. It makes sense for your journey, for where you are. So let me give you an example of that. When I grew up, I had a very exclusionary way of thinking about Jesus. I was taught that his teachings were meant to identify those who were in the in crowd and to identify those who were in the out crowd. And I was taught that I wanted to be I was taught that it was really good to be a part of the in crowd. That was the belief that I was taught growing up in many cases growing up in the South. The belief was you wanted to be on the right side of Jesus as opposed to the not right side of Jesus. But through all of that, there was still that strong faith, because faith is transcendent. Faith is universal. Faith is something that goes deeper than mere belief. Faith is the idea that I still believe in God, and I still believe in love, and I still believe in hope and peace and joy, right? And so my approach to how I embody my faith is driven largely by those beliefs. The beliefs have changed tremendously over the years. But I would like to believe that my faith, my orientation with God has been enriched by what I want to call incredible awakening of beliefs brought to me by some incredible angels over the course of my life. So just like you, as you said, I have still my strong belief in God, belief in love, and all those incredible values and dreams that we have as spiritual folks. But my beliefs, I'd like to believe, have created new openings and new pathways to realizing that.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, because my faith was always there. It kind of dwindled over the years, especially during my drug and alcohol years. That when I came back and I was like, God, where were you? He was like, dude, I've been here the whole time. Why didn't you have faith that I was here? And I was like, because I was doing drugs and alcohol. Hello. We have a question on the board for you. Did you study theology or religion at Brown? And how did you become a pastor?
Oh, thank you for the question. So yes, I studied political science and religious studies at Brown. And then when I went to Boston University for my graduate degree, I was focused specifically on divinity studies. And so, yes, I've been trained in that regard. But I received my passion for ministry while I was still growing up in the South. So I mentioned that Black Baptist church before, right? With all the great values and great community and great teachings. Yeah, I learned quickly, very early in my life, that I had a passion for serving others and being a part of other people's journeys, as I was also on my own journey. And I'll admit, I love to sing and I love to preach and I love to pray. I love to help others. And so I got the bug pretty early in life. Of course, I wanted to get my education and my trainings, all of those things I wanted to do to honor my people that I was working with. But ultimately, yes, I've had the Kool-Aid in my veins for a very long time.
That's an interesting way of putting it. But yeah, were you that kid that were you a natural born leader, or did that grow over time?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's a part in all of us that is oriented towards being of service, being of help. I think we all have that bug because I want to believe, all created by the same God. And so I think I have the spark. I think we have the spark. The goal is to recognize it, to be conscious of it, and to nurture it. And so over the years, I've been blessed, as I mentioned before, to have some angels in my life. One of those angels is a fantastic chaplain at Stanford, who taught me that yes, you can have the leadership bug, you can have the intuition, the inclination towards being of service and being visionary, but you also have to be willing to exercise the muscles of patience and the muscles of humility, the muscles of joy and the muscles of love. These are things that you don't just wake up and automatically have. You have to create a lifelong practice of embodying them and being willing to fail forward, because the Lord knows we don't always get it right. But if we have the passion and we have the what I want to call the love, that will get us through the hardest stages, and it will always keep us coming back.
I've always wondered, is there a separation? Is there a blurred line between Rodrick Echols and Pastor Rod? Like, do they have to coexist, or does that make sense?
Oh, it makes absolute sense. And the way I like to think about that, Daniel, is this idea that well, this is my opinion. My opinion is that there is no part of my life that is separate from another. In other words, I like to believe that I'm on a path to becoming a whole person. I want to believe that we're all on that journey. And so even though I'm one person, and even though nothing is separate because all things are interconnected, I absolutely, and this goes back to letting go. Remember, we started with letting go. Part of my letting go journey, and I encourage it for others like myself who are workaholics and like to do things as overachievers. We're all invited, including,
I don't know who you're talking about.
we're all invited, including myself, to let go of that need to overwork, to always be busy, but to find time for rest, to find time for fun. I love to let my hair down when I had hair. And like I shared with you, my brother, I'm a movie holic. I put my feet up and watch sports, and I love to eat junk food, and I read books that aren't all religious. In fact, I just finally finished getting my eyes on a book that I'm sure people have already read before, but I finally finished reading Harry Potter books. Finally, after all these years. But again, we have to find those times when we can exercise all those parts of our lives, not just the parts that we're always doing the work and always out there being on. We have to be able to find that intention that we want to honor and nurture our whole selves.
Yeah, it sounds like when Pastor Rod is done for the day, Rodrick is like, okay, we're going to kick it back and just relax for a little bit. Like, you
Absolutely.
don't have to be on 24/7.
Absolutely. I was out this morning. Washing my car, and as soon as I finish up with you, I'm going to be turning on March Madness for the rest of the day.
There you go. We have another question on the board. What's the biggest challenge Pastor Rod is facing this year?
Well, I can look at that from a few areas. I've already mentioned the personal area, which is letting go, and I want to start with that again, because I really believe that loving myself means letting go. Having the capacity within myself to say, stop beating yourself up. You are a work in progress, which means you're going to get there a little bit at a time, not all at once. I think somebody knows what I'm talking about. I'm not the only person who needs to hear that more often in my life. And so I think loving myself by letting go is my biggest personal challenge. Professionally, I would say that, like myself and many other spiritual communities in the world, COVID has really pushed us to do the work that is so important in different ways. We have to get to a point where we stop expecting people to come to our churches in person once a week and expect that that's all that we're called to do. We've got to get complicated even more. We've got to get tech savvy. We've got to get complex in our ministries. We have to be able to serve multiple folks' interests spiritually and mentally. We are being challenged as spiritual communities to go beyond our own self-interest. And for me, that is something that I take as an opportunity. It's not something that I cower from. It's not something that disappoints me. It's actually the work of love that in many ways we should have been doing well before the pandemic. So professionally, we're being pushed. Personally, I feel encouraged to let go. And then what I would say globally, because I have to say this. If I don't say this, I'll be kicking myself in the butt while I'm watching these basketball games, Daniel. So I got to say this. The important work of looking at the global needs. I was just reflecting on the recent shootings in Colorado and Georgia, and then I went back and reflected over the truth about the police violence that we experienced last year, the deaths, the George Floyds of the world, and all the rest. Right. And I think, if I can be real even more, I have to say to anyone listening, including myself at the same time, that we have to keep getting the word out about reconciliation and love. We got to keep talking about these very deep-seated issues that go beyond my sanctuary or any synagogue or any other spiritual center. We've got to keep talking about these very real issues that are affecting so many communities and causing so many people to feel unsafe. I really feel that not just this year, but for the years to come, we really have to keep talking about doing all that we can in the name of love. And me personally, I think a huge part of that is continuing to speak out on these global issues that are affecting so many people's lives.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that we all have our place in the bigger picture, like some people are meant to be changing laws, some are cheerleaders, and some of us are in the back kind of going, okay, how can we keep the spirit up? How can we keep the motivation going? And we all play games. So for those of you watching, they're like, well, do I protest? Do I write signs? Do I write a letter? Do I just cheer people on? I think the universe will guide you in the right direction and will show you where you belong. But we all belong. So don't forget that. We all belong.
We all belong.
We have a couple of really loaded questions, but before
Okay.
we go to those, I want to remind everybody you are watching Put Together Conversations. I'm your host, Daniel G. Garza. My guest today is Pastor Rod, and we are talking about belonging, finding your place, kicking back and watching sports. So we have a couple of really cool, for the people watching us on YouTube, welcome to the show. This is a really big question. What do you say to help an individual who has been beaten down their entire life with religion, Jesus' love, and being told that they are an abomination according to the Bible and God? So,
thank you for that. I could give a very loaded answer that would take up the next 30 minutes. I won't do that because Daniel won't have me back again. Here's the best way I can answer this and have time for more questions. I believe that the overarching message of the Bible, in addition to so many other sacred texts, is love. Now, there's no doubt about it that in the Bible, just like so many other texts, you find agendas. You find agendas in the Constitution. You find agendas in the Declaration of Independence. You find agendas in the Holy Bible. No doubt about that. But when I get to the essence of the teachings, the beliefs that fuel my life, including the teachings of my Jesus, I hear nothing but love. I hear nothing but inclusion. I hear nothing but acceptance. And so for me, I want to encourage you, if that's your life, I understand how you might feel that way. At the same time, I encourage you to know that there are other ways of thinking about these texts. There are other ways of interpreting these words. And for me, it is all about inclusion. Let me give you an example. If this question came from a Bible nerd like me, let me encourage you to look at a couple of verses. There's a scripture, John 3:16, for God so loved the world that God gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believed in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. You heard that verse before, and you've understood perhaps that over time, that verse has been used to divide people. It has been used to identify those who were in and those who were out. What I want to encourage you to do is to look at John 3:17. Go to the verse after that. Read John 3:17, because when you read John 3:17, I believe that verse is explaining 3:16. And too often we've only read 3:16 and we stop there. If you read the next verse, I think 3:17 is interpreting 3:16 to mean that Jesus was here for all, and he was here for a world that included all. So that's my recommendation. Read those two verses together, and pray about what Spirit is saying to you.
That was something somebody, another pastor friend who was on the show several years ago, said to me, like, do it together. It's a combo deal. It's like the burger and the fries. Don't just order one, get them together. But I'm so glad that, before I bring up the next question, I'm so glad you brought the word agenda to the conversation. Because whenever people talk to me about, well, my sexuality, things that have happened in my life, my spirituality, the things that I practice now, and they talk to me about, like, what's my agenda in all this? And do I have an agenda? And I shouldn't. I'm like, no, I think everybody has an agenda. Like, obviously, I invite you on the show. My agenda is to get to know you better, to bring in people that have never watched the show, maybe that follow you, to get out of. There always is an agenda. Now, is it a positive or a negative one? Well, that's entirely up to me and the way that the way it's received. But even, I would say, even as a pastor, you have to have an agenda to bring people into your church and deliver the message, correct?
Yeah, this kind of wording doesn't scare me at all. I had a great professor who told me a very long time ago that if you want to connect with people And if you want to have a chance to have any kind of impact on people's lives, in other words, if you want to be in a place for people to start trusting you, for them to even think about trusting you, you have to be willing to name your location. You have to be willing to name your bias. You have to be willing to name where you sit on the spectrum. And so I have no problem saying I have an agenda. There are as many agendas as there are people on this planet. What I'm hoping for, and I pray that all of us who are interested in this kind of work will do, is that our agendas will be hopefully life-giving overall, that we will be doing our best to nurture love, peace, and harmony in the world. And yes, it's going to be messy, and yes, it's going to be a little murky at times, because we're all human and we're all failing forward. But at the end of the day, yes, I absolutely have an agenda, and it's an agenda that I want to believe is the one that our Jesus embodied. You know, a long time ago, I used to call myself a progressive Christian because I was trying to differentiate myself in many ways from fundamentalist, quote unquote, conservative ways of thinking. I'm teaching myself to stop calling myself a progressive Christian because it somehow sends a message to some that I'm preaching an other kind of message. But I'm not preaching an other kind of message. I am preaching what I believe is the message of Jesus, which makes me a Christian.
Gotcha. All right, so we have another big question for you. Here we go. So on the board, secondly, how do you work to welcome these individuals into your church who are starting from such a negative space?
Thank you for the question. So we are in the process of actually improving in that regard. I don't want anyone to think that we're perfect, but what we are doing, at least I can say positively, is that our worship has taken on what I want to believe is a much more kind of I guess I'll say up to date, modernized kind of feel. I'll give you an example. We do still sing hymns because there are some beautiful hymns, no doubt. And the music is so very important to the worship experience. And there are some great hymns that we still continue to sing. In addition to that, my musician, my director of music, Roxana, she's done an amazing job of bringing on musicians and singers who are singing more up-to-date music. You know, we're singing the Beatles, and we're singing, words from the James Taylors of the world, and we had an offering from Stevie Wonder, and we've done an incredible job, I believe, of bringing in more recognized music and tying it to the message of love. And the feedback has been good. You know, we want to continue to innovate in that space to make the music as accessible as possible, because we believe that allows the message to be even more appreciated. And then in addition to that, I'm working on my website. If anyone has gone to my website, ncclaguna.org, it's currently under construction because before COVID, we had a huge focus on inviting people to come see us. You know, in order for you to be a part of our community, you have to physically get out of your home and come see us. And what we're learning is that we have to have a virtual presence. We have to create a way of people to perhaps enter into our message of love that does not require them to show up first. They can access us online and have ways of communicating with myself and other folks in the church to start to build a relationship that hopefully can lead someday to a face-to-face connection. So yes, we're working on it. We're not where we want to be, but we're not where we used to be. I guess you could say we're in that wilderness experience. But I'm grateful because I feel my church is interested in going deeper.
There is something that you brought up just a second ago, like the inclusion of different music, and I was very fortunate as a kid. I think my parents realized very early on that I was an unusual kid. And in the neighborhood I grew up in Dallas, there were different religions within the neighborhood. Like that one block, there were Baptists and there were Christians and there were Catholics. And on Sundays, as I got a little bit older, my parents couldn't just drag me to church anymore. And one of the friends was like, "Hey, you want to come to church with us?" And I'm like, Mom, can I go to church?" But my dad would say, "As long as you show up and God knows you were there, we don't care where you go. Like just go." Like, so I think it's really cool that I'm a big music guy. I love music. I play music when I'm showering. I play music when I'm cooking. And there are some songs that just instinctively give you the goosebumps, and you just feel like, and for those of you watching, whether it's the universe or God or whatever in between, but there are times when I hear a song that, of course, we all have our playlist, that one song on the playlist that is like, yes, it's that Whoopi Goldberg moment, and what is it? I just forgot the name of the movie, but it's that moment that you're like, yes, I feel it, and you know that God or the universe is right there with you. So I'm so happy. Like it motivates me as soon as we're able to visit to come and visit you there at the church and come check it out. Which leads me to this question, which is kind of off the topic, but what are your inspiration things, like songs or shows or?
Oh, wow. Oh, we don't have enough time for that. As I said before, I'm a movie holic. I love TV. Let me do my best. Let me talk about what's recent. Number one, I just finished. I'm a huge comic book guy, so I love Marvel comics. I just finished WandaVision.
Hmm.
And I don't know if anyone out there has seen WandaVision, but I love WandaVision, not just because of the superhero action type stuff, but it's an incredible story about grief and how, in many ways, all of us are in grief. Well, we're all bereaved in some way. In other words, we're all learning to let go of something so we can get on with our lives. And WandaVision is an incredible, incredible show, not just because of the pomp and circumstance being a comic book, but because it really does talk about how coping with grief is such an incredible opportunity for us to live better lives and not to be slaves to our past. In addition to that, I just finished a Nomadland. Have you seen Nomadland?
I have not seen it yet. I have not seen it yet.
I
It's on my
highly
queue.
I highly recommend Nomadland because it does an incredible job of talking about the forgotten aspects of American society, the people who aren't always on the front lines, but who do an incredible work to help us keep our country going. And it's an incredible story that must be heard by everybody. And then inspiration-wise, music. Recently I just got myself more focused on some world music, some Buddhist teachings, meditation, the music and the chantings. I have CDs and playlists of this, which helps me to meditate and pray, to get outside of myself and to experience the universe and spirit more deeply. So that's something I'll always appreciate. And then more music when I'm having a rough day, when I need a boost in my life. I gotta go to my Stevie Wonders. I gotta go to my John Lennons, my Paul McCartneys. I gotta get into my headspace and maybe put on a little Billie Holiday and tell myself, yeah, it was a bad day. Yes, I'm down today. But I put all that together and I find myself and I give myself the appreciation that I did my best and tomorrow's a new day.
It's pretty cool. I'm a big believer that some of the most beautiful messages come in the most unusual packages, I guess. I'm not I'm more of a Spanish country listener. I'm a Texas boy. I love Tejano and country music. Like that's my thing. But every once in a while, like I'm going through YouTube and there's a rap sub that comes on, and I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. They just said something that caught me. So I go and look at the lyrics and I'm like, that is so beautiful. Like, I can't believe that's like, sometimes it's just so hidden that you don't realize that it's there. And then there's movies that I just catch. For those of you, if you're not streaming stuff, you're missing out because regular channels are not showing like all the good stuff. So yes, I'm gonna have to go watch WandaVision. I heard some good stuff about it. And Nomadland. Nomadland is actually on my queue to watch for SAG for the awards and stuff. So I need to go check it out. I will take that. It says pastor recommended. It's pastor recommended. Folks, Nomadland is pastor recommended. How can you say no to that movie? Oh. It's like doctor approved. This is pastor approved viewership, people. Um, Before we continue, let me remind everybody you're watching Put It Together Conversations. I'm your host, Daniel Chigaza. My guest today is Pastor Rod um, from United Church of Christ here in Laguna Beach. And we're talking about welcoming people, being surrounded by angels, and finding your way. We're at 45 minutes. 15 minutes before the end of the show. Now, this is pretty much where I ask my guests to share some words of wisdom with our listeners and viewers. So, Pastor Rod, what words of wisdom would you like to share?
Well, I don't know that I have a whole lot more than letting go, but I'll say this. I'll say this because I do think that it's something that has been on my heart for a while now. I don't know how others access spirit or God or the universe or whatever name you want to put on it, but one thing I just want to encourage all of us to consider is there really is no wrong way. I mean, there are destructive ways, but there are so many good ways to find your way into spirit. Yes, I'm a praying man, so obviously praying for me is important. It's a huge part of my life, and it's something that allows me to transcend my ego, which happens to be something that's important for my journey, transcending myself. But outside of that, outside of praying, I meditate. You know, I take walks in the park. You know, I walk along the beach. You know, I sit in silence when I need that. You know, I try to create multiple ways of transcending myself, getting outside of my ego. And so I encourage everyone, especially as we start to, get back into this what appears to be frantic and hurried way of life post COVID. Let's not lose the divine spark for connection. Let's not lose that part that I believe is innate in all of us, to want to be attached to something bigger than we are. And however you get into that headspace, I encourage you to nurture that and feed it, but most importantly, maintain it as we start to quote unquote get back to business in this crazy, chaotic world.
That's very cool. Thank you for that. I really okay. So other than the fact, for those of you that joined us from the beginning, other than the fact that I was mad at him for a while, let's just remember that. I'm not gonna let that go so soon. But other than that, I really am digging like the way you put it, because I do spiritual mentoring work on my side, and we kind of talked about this a little bit last time, but when I talk to my clients, I always tell them, like, if the word God is uncomfortable for you, then substitute it for spirit. If the word spirit is bad, then universe. If that doesn't work for you, especially in recovery, being clean and sober for over 13 years, when I have people that are talking to me about recovery and they're like, well, I have an issue with all that. I'm like, if your higher power is the doorknob, then use that doorknob to open the door and walk through it and do something with your life. So I really appreciate you saying that as long as it sparks something inside you to offer something positive into the world, then does it really matter what word we give it, as so long as it motivates you? Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes total sense. And no, it doesn't matter. The object can be whatever name brings you life, whatever name brings you joy, whatever name I want to say takes you outside of your clinginess or your need to control. So if it's a pencil or a doorknob or whatever, go with that, because it's what takes you to that other place. And then the other thing I like about what you said, Daniel, is it's kind of like sometimes people need to have physical activity. I was talking to a friend of mine about this the other day. He said that when I use my words, whether it's universe, God, pencil, doorknob, whatever, he says I also have a physical way of manifesting it. So whenever I'm in my moment of prayer or meditation, whenever that word comes to mind, He says, I tend to lift my hands up, right? My physical practice when I use the word is to embody it by using my hands in a constant, also meditative kind of way. So for some people, it is going to be a combination of activities, whether it's in word or maybe some physical gesture or whatever. But don't limit yourself is what I'm saying, and don't limit yourself is what you're saying. All of us have this, I want to say, this license, this freedom, to experiment and play with it, ultimately find out what works for you. And then the really cool part is, over time, you may find out that you want to try something else because the other thing stopped working.
Yeah, and that's so long as 'cause I did that. I mean, I coming from a drug addict background, you do the drug till it stops working, then you move on to something else. And then it just took going to rehab and having people in rehab say to me, we're not going to beat you over the head with the big bug like that. That's not going to work. But we're going to show you how to replace the drug for something else that's going to continue to make you feel better. And the cool thing is that over the last 13 plus years, every time something doesn't work, I'm looking for something bigger to do.
Yes.
That's going to put something bigger into the community.
Right.
And we talked about that at the beginning. It's like I started with one channel on audio, and now we're transmitting to 7 different channels at once. And let that be, folks, let that be a metaphor for life. You can start with one channel, but don't stay there. Keep broadcasting. And plus, it's being backed up by Pastor Rod. What else can be better than that? Let's just say that.
The beautiful thing about what you're saying is what I find in my own life, at least, is that much of what some people run from as an addict is discomfort, right? Many of us, being addicted to something, we're trying to avoid some kind of discomfort or sort of dissidence in our lives. And we don't want to feel the rejection, we don't want to feel the emptiness, we don't want to feel the contortedness, we don't want to feel the sadness, we don't want to feel the pain. So we revert back to that addiction. And addiction can be many things, right? We're talking here about having an addiction to connection, having an addiction to spirit, having an addiction to the universe, right? Addictions that bring us happy feelings, joyful feelings, peaceful feelings, hopeful feelings, new patterns, new ways of being in life, so that we can say that all of us have an addiction. It's on different levels. It's a different kind of addiction. It can be a positive one, negative one. I think you get my point. The idea is that all of us are wired for connection. We're wired. I'm gonna use the word. We're wired for addiction. The question is, what are we addicted to, and is it helping?
That makes sense. And we're one of the post cancer. For those of you who follow my journey for a while, post cancer, one of the rules that I set for myself for guests on the show was that if I met somebody that made me feel uncomfortable and I didn't know why, I would immediately invite them on the show, because that way I could have a conversation and find out why. Was it something positive within me that I was finding? Or because I think people are mirrors to ourselves. There's always a mirror that we see in somebody else. So if somebody made me uncomfortable, I was like, what is it that I'm seeing in you that makes me uncomfortable about me? And let me figure that out. And I've made some really awesome friends to the show because of that. I want to bring this comment back because it's somebody that knows me well and knows it is a bonus, folks, that the church is right across from Laguna Peace, that in my opinion has some of the best tacos in Laguna Beach. So it's very Mexican to be able to go to church and then go have tacos afterwards. So I'm all in. I am all in about that right now. So
the folks at Feast know me well. In fact, every time I go in, they already know what I want to order. So I just walk in the door and they see my face and they say, "Okay, give me the money, give us the cash." It's such great food. And as you know, Daniel, they also have that really nice area outside. So for the folks who want to be social distance and safe and everything else, you can do that and still get a good meal.
So we're gonna go. We're gonna have to have some tacos and
I
get
look
you some
forward to it.
tacos.
And now we just made money for Laguna Feast, so we
You
should call
know,
we should call them and get a sponsorship going for your
be
show.
like, "What's up, dudes?" But oddly enough, they've known me for 12 years since I've lived in Laguna.
Yep,
I've
yep.
been going ever since. And for the folks watching and listening, I've mentioned Laguna Beast over the years several times. It is my favorite taco place, which just made me think, I may take a little drive after the show. We're almost at the end of the show. Any last words? Any last messages to you? Remind folks where you are and where they can find you.
Thank you. So again, our website is under construction, but folks can go check us out. It's ncclaguna.org. We also have a YouTube channel. You can put in the search words Neighborhood Church Laguna Beach. Again, that's Neighborhood Church Laguna Beach. And there you'll find our videos, our worship services, all the cool stuff that we've been doing. Again, that's Neighborhood Church Laguna Beach on YouTube. And then the last thing I would say about all this incredible time that we've had is I really do look forward to what the world will look like on the other side of COVID. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was saying that he believes that the compassion quotient, he called it the compassion quotient in the universe, has been increased because of COVID. There is a stronger level of caring. There is a stronger spirit of supporting, and there is more help being given in ways we've never imagined. People are extending themselves in ways that they could not have even thought about just a year ago. And so, his approach, and I kind of agree with him, is that we're going to see continued outpourings of great service and help in the coming months and years. And I think that's going to tend to create some even stronger and more positive and more relevant spiritual communities. It's my prayer that my church and other churches like us, both in Laguna Beach and outside Laguna Beach, can continue to be a place where we learn and grow, do things better, do things differently, bring in folks who have all kinds of ways of seeing and being in the world. We're not trying to get them to fit into one square peg or round hole. We just want them to come and help us get better as we help them get better. I just think that the world is going to be demanding that on the other side of pandemic. And I want my folks to be a part of that. I want other spiritual communities to be a part of that. I believe that's what Spirit is going to be looking for in this new age.
I think, yes. I think, like I said, for me in the beginning, like God, the universe, were like, dude, sit down, pay attention to what's going on around you. Like, and I think as a collective, we've all started to pay attention to what's happening. And as our collective light shines brighter, we shine on the shadows, and we find the people that were sitting in the dark. And some of them have a positive reaction, and some of them have a negative reaction. But it's, I don't want to put words on anything, but my experience is, for those of you watching, just shine your light. It is not your responsibility how people react to it. So long as you come from a place of love, it will be received by the right people.
That's what letting go means. We start where we end where we started, right? When we talk about letting go, right, which we've been talking about over the course of this show, at its essence, right, letting go means I'm not God, or I'm not Spirit, I'm not the universe. So if I'm not those things, then it's up to Spirit, it's up to the universe, it's up to God to work with those people, to work with those communities, to work with this world. I pour my positivity, I pour my love, I pour my compassion into the mix, and Spirit does the rest. That's what letting go truly means.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We're down to the end of the show. Thank you so much for being here. It was such a pleasure to actually have because we usually bump into each other at events, and it's not a really good place to talk, but I'm so glad we had this chance to talk. I'm no longer upset with you, so I've let that go over the hour show. It took an hour. This is very serious, Pastor Rod. I don't know why we're laughing at that, but you're such a delight, man. I hope you will come back on the show.
It would be my pleasure. And listen, the Spirit has ordered all of this in a way that I love. It had to happen this way, Daniel. It had to happen this way because I think our coming together today was made truly special through all of it. So thank you. Thank you for your listeners, your watchers, your incredible community. I'm just so thankful for this opportunity. And now I have some college basketball games waiting for me. I
Awesome.
can't wait.
Well, don't go anywhere. Let me say goodbye to everybody, and I'll be right back for you. For everybody watching, this has been Putting Together Conversations. My guest today was Pastor Rod from United Church of Christ here in Laguna Beach. Go check it out once they're able. Come visit. And there's tacos right across the street. I want to thank all of you on Facebook who have been watching the show and commenting. Thank you for being part of the conversation. Thank you for all my watchers on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, will you do me a favor? Scroll down, subscribe to the channel, and like the video. Maybe leave a comment. I'll make sure that Pastor Rod gets it. If you're watching on Twitter, will you retweet this and maybe leave a comment? And I'll make sure he gets those too. And to all our new watchers over on LinkedIn, thank you for joining the show. I so appreciate you guys being part of this. And thank you to LinkedIn for allowing us to show live on the channel. We really appreciate it. Little Mexican Productions, Abnormal Entertainment, Hubridge Management, and RPM Talent are all thankful for this opportunity. For now, I want to thank all of you watching. Thank you, Pastor Rod, for being on the show. And this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.